Hello, Mr. Kevin Taylor. How are you?
Hey, Mr. Eric Jones, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Exceptional.
So, I noticed that you have a new project going on. So, tell us some more about your project that's going on.
Okay, well, after 20 years, actually 20 years this year, on the other side of the camera, it is just finally taking flight, the idea of doing my own talk show. Several people that I've had interviews with, Tony Braxton and Natalie Cole, and several other people have said, why don't you have your own show? And I don't, it's all the same, that it just kind of, sometimes if you get in your own pocket, in your own lane, coming out of it, branching out of it, just almost feels unnecessary. It's like, oh, I've been blessed so far behind the scenes, why would I step out? But stepping out is what it's time to do. So the show that I'm working on is called Now What with Kevin E.Taylor. And in my ministry, because I left BET as a full-time employee in 2002 to concentrate on pastoring, and then came back in as a freelancer. And with that, with BET, with ministry, with just artist conversations, the question comes up again and again with me, like, now what? Like, how do you make all these monumental changes? And my first sermon at the top of every year is always, now what? Because, people say, that's the worst year I've ever had. I didn't think I would make it. Okay, now it's the first Sunday of January. Now what? Because you can't ride out that claim that this was horrible and I'm not going to make it if you made it. And you got to make it through the thing in order to determine what you do next. And so I want to have conversations with singers and politicians and artists and activists who have had to answer the question, now what? I lost my job, now what? All the HIV funding is gone, now what? I got dropped from a label, now what? I didn't expect to grow old in the industry, now what? I'm a mom and my kids are gone from home and I'm still young and vibrant, now what? I cashed out my 401k to start my bakery because that's what I always wanted to do, now what? And I feel like now what is the question that always, kind of burns in everybody's belly, because so many people that I engage with always, especially as an empowerment coach, always want the then what?
Yeah,
They want step by step, and then what? And then what? And you don't understand, and then what? It's like they want the whole course of all of the answers before they'll take one step.
Just walk you right through.
Exactly, walk me right through it, hook me up, exactly, hook me up. And the truth is, you don't get the keys to door number 2 until you come through door number 1. Right. You don't get to do some sort of, there is no shortcut, there is no nepotism, there is nothing that really walks you through what it feels like to take each step except the last step. And so now what is really about that, it's like, all right, I'm scared to move forward, but I took the first step.
So basically you're going to be like a resource.
Well, the conversations will be resources. I mean, Natalie Cole and Christopher Williams and Mayor, Senator, I hope, Cory Booker, to just have these conversations with people who have made the steps. So I want to talk to the business owner. I want to talk to the Lisa Price from Carol's daughter, who was making that wonderful elixir in her kitchen, and then it got so popular she had to, to grow it up. Now what? And then Jay-Z and Will and Jada and Mary J. Blige invested $10 million. Now what? Because sometimes we're not even prepared to grow, and all of a sudden you get an influx of money, and then it becomes now what? Because we get so stuck in settling for less and doing with little that we don't know what to do when a replenishment of resources come in. We're not ready to have a spokesperson. We're not ready to do a commercial. We're not ready to get a storefront. We're not ready to publish the book. I have so many people who want to talk to me about writing who haven't put pen to paper yet, who won't put their fingers to the keys, because it's like, well, what if the book doesn't succeed? And I said, well, what if it is a bestseller? Then what? So you can't talk about, well, what if you haven't done anything, I'm an editor. Don't ask me to read nothing.
So that basically sounds like they're sabotaging themselves.
It's a setup. It's a setup to say nothing ever goes my way. Nobody ever supports me, because it's like, look, I'm trying to get in. Get in what? Being at BET, so many people are always trying to get in. And they want to get in when you go into the Grammys or the BET Awards. Right. They don't want to be in when you're up at 3:47 working on the show, because specials are edited from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Now what?
Now what? Okay, now we shot the show. Now what? It does not, most of television does not land on the tape edited and pretty. You have to sit up and do the work. That's why we're producers, to take all of these parts and produce a great show. And most people aren't prepared for the now what work. And it seems that the more access to stuff that people are getting, the more they realize that the only thing stopping them is themselves. Before, you didn't have anywhere to do your show because you couldn't get on BET or the WB or Fox. Now you got the internet where you can start your own YouTube channel, and you got people out here with millions and millions of hits. Now what?
Yeah.
You know, you get to produce the show. You say, I can't buy a camera. Now Nokia has a 41 pixel camera that shoots, high res. Now what?
Now what?
Now what?
So
Your
basically,
friend is in film school and he got 3 cameras. Now what?
so you're basically saying just get out and do it.
Ain't nothing to it but to do it, and you don't get to ask the question until you do something. And so that's what this work is really about, And part of it, where people were like, well, why didn't you just go to BET? Because I realized that, to BET or to sell it to somebody else, and I realized that in order to take this real now what step, I've got to own the intellectual creative property.
Right.
And so something like a Kickstarter, which is crowdfunding, allows me to be able to say, I own this. And if I want to expand the channel on the internet, because there's shows out now like Orange is the New Black. That's just on Netflix, and it's the show of the summer, and it's just on Netflix. So if I want to own the property and be able to talk to Hulu or Netflix about getting it on, or BET or TV One or the We channel, I've got to own it. And so being able to pitch the idea to your audience and the people and say, believe in it, because I believe in the idea of kind of opening up these conversations to talk to people who made these huge steps, and the people who are making them just like you. Like I said, like the mother whose kids are gone, who's decided, her cookies, that the people always talked about at the PTA are so exceptional that she really needs to consider.
She needs to know what steps to take.
Exactly. But the way she determines how to take those steps is not just with me as the empowerment coach, but with the mom who started her own florist, or the mom who started her own catering business. The answers are already with people. And the problem is we've become such a celebrity-driven culture that people almost don't pay attention unless it's a celebrity. But I believe that people will pay attention to the information when it's well produced and when it comes from themselves. So when it's another mother whose story is just like yours, you're going to stop in the middle of the afternoon and go, oh my God, I need to watch this. When it's another person who's taken the big bold step, like you, because a lot of people get stuck in the, well, you don't understand my struggle. Guess what? I got laid off too. Guess what? I had to come out of the closet too. Guess what? I understand the thing you had to go through. And when you hear that, it peaks at your ears. And so now what really becomes a kind of, all right, here come the notes. How do you maintain a career like like an artist like Tone, who comes out of the closet in gospel music? You can't talk to anybody but Tone about that. There are people who were out in the industry and people knew them, but as it relates to a big, bold step, he did that. And, and whatever cross there was to bear, only he can talk about it. Whatever the successes were, what it felt like to be like independent and free, only he can talk about it. But what he's doing is talking to not only those artists still in the gospel industry who might be struggling with it, but to the artists who are struggling with it in pop and R&B and jazz and hip hop, because the coming out is the coming out. The bold step is the bold step. And now as we're watching people come out in wrestling, people come out in, who just came out? Wentworth Miller, who's the lead on Prison Break, just came out because he was like, I'm not coming to Russia, and as much as as this invitation is nice, as a gay man, I must decline. Boom! It's like, now what? Now Mr. Leading Man has to stand up and see if his career will work. But he can see a path because Neil Patrick Harris has shown it to him, and still playing a leading man cad on How I Met Your Mother, and hosting the Tonys and queening out, because because when you are good, actors act.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You don't need to know people's business in order to let them do what they do gloriously. But so it's about that. It's about being able to show people that this whole thing about now what isn't just some sort of theory. It really is about step 1, step 2, step 3. It really is about write the book. Then find somebody to edit it. Well, I don't know anybody. Well, put the status on your Facebook, and somebody knows somebody who's an editor. Exactly. Then what? I got a printer. Oh my God, who knows how to do covers? Let me introduce you to my cover guy. I need some photography. Here's a dude that shot my book. It's like we need to, spin our web wide, because otherwise, what do we have 5,000 friends for? What do you have people
So you're saying the resources are there, all you have to do is reach out?
The resources already exist. I mean, this is happening because I saw you on the street and you asked, how can I help? It's like, a lot of times when people, have moments like that come to them, how can I help? They don't have an answer to a question. They don't have an answer to the person that they really like actually saying hello. They got a whole setup for rejection, a whole setup for somebody throwing them shade, a whole setup for somebody ignoring them. A whole lot of your viewers wouldn't know what to do if the person they liked stopped and said, hi, I like you too. Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know how I know? Because so many times we meet quality people and go through really great, conversations and great dates, and then say, well, what are you doing single? Well, wasn't that on the list of the things you wanted your new partner to be? Single? You didn't want to be Jocelyn Brown and have somebody else's God, right? So why are you thrown that a quality person is single when you're a quality person and you're single too?
Right.
You know, the fact that we aren't really prepared for the planets to line up and for grace and mercy to step in and go, you're ready now? Now what? Boom, there it is.
Won't be ready.
Boom, there it is. Uh-oh. Bishop T.D. Jakes says, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
That's right.
You know, and that whole idea of always having the thing that you want to do ready to fire off. And now what is really about walking a lot of people who say they want to do it, who really aren't prepared to do it through whatever the process, because the stories will change, like the details of the story. A public speaker who had to come out of the closet one week, and an R&B singer the next week, and an actor the following week, but the struggle will always be the same. That person who the night before, who right before they walked in the press conference had to decide, am I prepared to take this next step? And for every person who says no, and they say no because they don't think they'll be able to survive it, will be somebody who did it and survived it and who can show them the way out. Let me tell you this really great story. It's like a riddle, but I always like to use it. It was a woman who was walking through the course of her life and literally fell in a hole. And on the way down, hit her head and banged and pinged her body as she was falling into this hole, and realized when she hit the bottom that she didn't die, though she was really bruised, and she cried out, somebody help, somebody help. And while she was crying out for help, her pastor walked by. And she said, Pastor, is that you? He said, well, yes, daughter, it is. And she said, Pastor, I need help. And Pastor got on his knees and prayed for her. God bless, blah, 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 and I want to anoint you, Lord. And then he went on his way. And then she's like, okay, thanks, Pastor. And then, kind of cried out for help again. Somebody help, somebody help. And then the doctor walked by and he said, ma'am, is that you? And she said, yes, doctor, it's me. I fell in the hole. And the doctor wrote a prescription and threw it in the hole. And she's like, oh, Lord, okay, I don't know what to do. And so she cries out again, somebody help, somebody help. And then one of her girlfriends walks by. And she says, Gladys, what happened? She said, girl, I fell in this hole. And Gladys jumped in the hole. And Dorothy said, Gladys, what you do that for? She said, girl, I've been in this hole before. I know the way out. And we have to stop keeping our lives and our struggles secret from one another, because it's when a mother loses a child that a mother who lost a child 40 years ago can take her aside when everybody else is there saying, oh, baby, oh, baby. And then you find out your grandmother lost her first child, and you're like, oh, my God, I never knew. You weren't supposed to know, because that story doesn't need to come up until she needs to talk to another woman who's lost a child about how to make it over. For us, it would just be stories to be told. We don't need that. What we need is impartation, if you will. Somebody who pours into you the thing you need when you need it. As producer to producer, he said, Kevin, I can't figure out how to get this back in sync. What program are you using? Oh, well, let me open mine and walk you through it.
Exactly.
You understand that? And I think that we get lost in that because a lot of people really do prostrate like I got it all together.
Oh, yeah.
And so they have no idea how to ask for help when I keep making you believe I already got it together.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're walking around with somebody else's clothes and labels on our back, and having the fabulous label must mean I'm fabulous, which means I must have money, which means I must be doing okay. So how can I ask you for $20 because I'm struggling this week until my check comes next week, when I've already purported that I'm fabulous?
Yeah.
When I'm gathered with y'all to have martinis, and you don't realize while y'all are on the fourth one or the third one, I'm still sipping on the first one because I'm stretching, and I shouldn't be here at all. Or if I had told you, you would have covered me. Right. And so this whole now what is going to talk about friendships, it's going to talk about relationships, it's just going to talk about the ways that we have to ask this life's greatest question. I'm struggling, now what? I'm successful, now what? They say that 95% of lottery winners end up bankrupt. So that means they don't end up poor again, or well-to-do again, or middle class again. They end all the way up at bankruptcy, because most of us are not acculturated to wealth. You understand that? So if you don't understand how to handle a great deal of money, because you took $50 out of the ATM on Friday, and by Saturday afternoon couldn't figure out what you did with it, 50 million will destroy you.
Oh, yeah.
So there's got to be this conversation about now what, like the second you get your money. All right, I'm a millionaire. Now what? Because most of us think we can answer that question. I'm going to go buy a house, I'm going to go buy, blah, blah, blah. But how many of those reality stars, especially the first one like Richard Hatch from Survivor, who ended up going to jail for tax evasion? Because nobody told him, now you need to give part of this money over here. You know what I mean? Because the TV channel is going to give you a big $1 million check, so that it says they gave you $1 million, not $611,419.23. Nobody wants that. I want to see $1 million. but they also don't come with a financial advisor saying, all right, so take this part and put it over here. What you really have is this, and of this part you're going to get this much back. So basically this is
Right.
so it's not just struggle. A whole lot of the now what has to do with people in the best relationship of their lives who haven't dealt with some of their hurt. So it's like I'm in love with the boo of my blessings. Now what? Because I keep fighting, I keep sabotaging, I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Right.
I'm jaded, I'm scared, I'm broken. I didn't heal myself because I wanted somebody else to come along to do it. And now somebody better than I ever thought I deserved has shown up. Now what?
So you're at your point closer to your deadline for your
Yeah,
Kickstarter, right?
So
Where's that at?
I'm a Virgo. My Beyonce and let me see, Beyonce, Damon Wayans, Candy Alexander, Mike Piazza. We all share birthdays, September 4th. So 9/4 at 9:04 p.m. I'm expecting, what I have by then, if I pass my deadline, I mean, my goal amount, which is $9,004, see, 904, it's a theme, then I get funded. And we're about 80, when I checked before we started rolling, I'm about 80% funded. So I really expect that it's going to go through. I know there are several people who are like, I'm going to give this weekend, I'm going to give this weekend. And so if your audience, just, go to Kickstarter and look up Now What with Kevin E.Taylor. And if you believe in the idea, give. And it's really important that people understand that, Kickstarter is a dollar to whatever the highest end that the producer wants to do. But each of those dollars matters. I told somebody the other day, if I was at $9,003 a minute before 9:04 and you gave the dollar, that makes all the difference. And so we have to really get people to see that you're invested in this idea. And that we really get to see the power we have. Every level from $5 up, has some sort of reward, is what they call it. But even Kickstarter is built in such a way that people can pledge $1 because what it's about is empowerment programming, really. You go to Kickstarter, you'll see that there are people who have funded comic books and, live albums and, paintings. I saw the development of some new toy on there. So it really is about just being able to show the audience that we finally have the power to give birth to the programming we want. We always complain that BET don't do this, or TV One don't do that, or Logo don't do that. Well, now I'm trying to do this. Now what? You know what I mean? It's really about, putting your money where your mouth is. And I can say that because I actually backed 2 projects before I ever gave birth to this. One of my friends, Omi Trevere, has an album coming out called Connect the Dots. Stanley Bennett Clay is working on putting a play out. And it's like, you get that request and it's like, oh my God, this is a person I believe in. And now I get to show it. You know what I mean? If I would take that friend out for dinner, what would I spend on dinner? And that's what I kept thinking with each of these people I care about. It's like, what would I spend on dinner? You probably spend about $50. Boom, there it is.
Now what?
There it is, there's your money, now what? And if everybody that believes in them does that, or, like when my birthday coming, I was like, if you were gonna send me an email, that's probably $1 worth of power. Give $1. If you want to send me a card, because Hallmark and mahogany cards are $4.95, so just put $5. If you want to send me flowers, that's $20. But to use that to give birth to this stuff so that we can then see these real conversations happen, so we can then see all the things that we can do. I'm really excited, to have, people that I work with at BET be supportive, and people that I work through in ministry be supportive, and college kids that I've spoken to say, I wish I could give more, but here's $10, and all of that, ensures that I'm not trying to just say, oh, I'm going to do 13 episodes and they're all going to be celebrities so I can get high ratings. It's my job as a producer to make sure the show is hot if I'm dealing with Cory Booker, if I'm dealing with a mom from suburbia, or if I'm dealing with Brandy. You know what I mean? It's like the conversation has to be what works, And I know that Now What is really a conversation whose time has come because, I've spent too many midnight hours with people who were saying, just help me get through this thing I'm stuck in. And the first question really does become like, have you done this? Yes. So now what? So, every time I've done more weddings this summer than I have, in a long time, in a really tight period. And to be able to sit with couples who think everything is fine and then a question comes up. It's like, all right, well, we hear that. You heard that, she heard that, we heard that. Now what? And people, oh, we love each other, we can work through it. No, we're going to work through this before you walk down the aisle. And it doesn't mean that we're trying to condemn it or break it down. It really is, what did you hear her say? What is it going to take to make you all work through this? And how important is this? Because sometimes we come into a relationship with deal breakers and we ain't never dealt them. You know what I mean? It's like it's a deal breaker if blank. But you forget that love is in the quotient. People who found the love of their life, but he's HIV positive. Now what? Now what? or he's of a different race, or, as people are dealing with their fluid sexuality, somebody who thought they were this and then falls in love with that. Uh-oh. Now what? We saw Cynthia Nixon go through that with from Miranda from Sex and the City. It's like she was in a long-term relationship. She's like, I fell in a deeper kind of love. Uh-oh, now what? I mean, life forces us to answer these questions because we keep living. And as long as you're living, something's going to come up. If you are bold enough, that will force you to answer. Now what? Like everything from I'm lost, I'm driving and I'm lost. Now what?
Now what? So what is your Kickstarter address?
Oh my God! It's almost because Kickstarter. Again, go to Kickstarter.com and just look for Now What with Kevin E. Taylor, because when you try to link it, I will make sure that when you publish this, that the link, you have the direct link. But look up Now What with Kevin E. Taylor, and it'll take you right to the spot, a picture of me with my head back laughing, because life is good. There's struggles, there's drama, there's no trauma, there's no stress, because it's just like I always tell people, when I don't understand how Facebook came up with it's complicated. Because if you're single, it's complicated. If you're in a relationship, it's complicated. If you're married, it's complicated. If you're divorced, it's complicated. So who needs it's complicated? It's complicated means it's the dance of being with another person, Like the toilet seat is up. Is this about to make a fight go down in my house, or am I just going to put the toilet seat down? That's a complicated struggle when you're used to being right. That's a complicated struggle when you said it 3 times and you really want them to hear you. And instead of telling them you really want them to hear you, when you talk at night, you're going to cuss about the top up on the toothpaste or the toilet seat. You know what I mean? So life will put you in these now what scenarios, you know what I mean? Because it's a daily struggle, if you will. But struggle is a push and pull, a daily struggle to decide, even, as we stand here in Tribeca, traffic is coming. Do I have it in me to run and rush across the street, or is something telling me you ain't got it? Pause. Let the light change and let it turn green. Neither one of them is a condemnation of you. Sometimes you got it. You just want to be like, yeah, I feel good today. And you zip across the street and before the traffic comes. Right. Sometimes you go, look, I knew I was tired when I came over there, so I know by the time I get there I'm exhausted. I don't need to test it by making my way across the street. And even if the car is stopped, half of them going to blow, and they're going to make me feel crazy about something I already knew I shouldn't have done. So why don't I just pause? Q-Tip says breathe and stop, for real. Then give it what you got. I mean, that's what this Now What is about. It's not always about painful things. It's always the purposeful point of being able to say, am I prepared to do this? And if I am, how do I do it well? If I'm not, how do I prepare to do it? That's what Now What is about. And so you guys could go to Kickstarter.com and look at Now What with Kevin E. Taylor. And again, I'm going to make sure you have the link, give, so that my show gives birth to more of your show, our shows, and then we have our own network, and then the network becomes this whole new movement.
That's right. So you say September...
So 9/4, so the Kickstarter ends at 9/4, at 9:04, and the goal is $9,004. I know, but I'm a Virgo. We're anal like that. So
that's his birthday. So if you want to do something,
Beyonce's birthday, Candy Alexander's birthday, Mike Piazza, and Damon Wayans.
For his birthday, just drop the money.
Jonathan Celestin, I love him.
At Kickstarter. Just give it to him at Kickstarter. So I want to say thank you for being on the show. I'm looking forward to seeing the show, actually, and seeing what else you got doing.
Okay, I appreciate it, because immediately, I think what's going to happen is that the show will probably debut at the top of the year, and before that, Meet the Hendersons is coming out. Meet the Hendersons is my latest novel. When I wrote the book Jaded in 2006, I dropped a little piece of story in there about a couple that had been together for 40 plus years. And at the top of last year, I asked people, when I had these 4 stories together, which one of these do you want to see? And I was overwhelmed at how many young people wanted to see this story of 2 men who have been together, who met in the 60s, got together in the 70s, and who are still together today. But it makes perfect sense, because, when you talk about us, in our communities, thinking that love doesn't last a long time, and here all of a sudden you read a story about 2 people who made it work through all kinds of struggle. And now what? Now you have to deal with, am I ready to be in a relationship? Am I willing to make the sacrifices and the compromises that it will take in order to let love grow in my life? So Meet the Hendersons is coming out before Thanksgiving. And then Now What with Kevin E. Taylor will be out at the top of the year. It'll be at KevinETaylor.tv, so I'm starting my own channel as well.